The Bible, is it contradictory? When Jesus was crucified, a sign was placed above his head with wording that differs in each of the four Gospels. Some people say this is a discrepancy, but is there an explanation? Were the Gospel writers accurate? Well, what do we find if we look more closely? Is it possible to resolve the difficulty and confirm the harmony of Scripture? Well, these are the contrasting records. Matthew's Gospel says, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." Mark's Gospel says, "the King of the Jews." Luke's Gospel says, "This is the King of the Jews." John's Gospel says, "Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews." Now, there is no disagreement between these writers, just some extra detail typical of real-life reporting. Identical words, "the King of the Jews," are in all four Gospels, and the reason for the differences is not hard to discover. In John 19 and verse 19, it says that Pilate wrote a title and put it on the cross, and the writing was, "Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews." The crime for which Jesus was falsely accused and crucified was that he was the King of the Jews. Pilate, who knew Jesus was innocent of rebellion, chose the words to insult the nation and annoy the priests who had manipulated him. And so John 19 verse 20 says, "This title then read many of the Jews, for the place where Jesus was crucified was nigh to the city, and it was written in Hebrew and Greek and Latin." That the title was written in 3 languages explains the slight differences between the Gospel records. It is unlikely that inscriptions in 3 different languages would correspond word for word. Not only does John write that many Jews read the title, but also their Hebrew language is mentioned first. You see, only to the Jews of Palestine did it matter that Jesus had lived in the Galilean village of Nazareth. In Luke chapter 23 and verse 38 it says, "A superscription also was written over him in letters of Greek and Latin and Hebrew, 'This is the King of the Jews.'" Now here, Greek comes first in the received text. Luke, the author, has a Greek name and readership. Greek was the language of Jews of the dispersion who thronged Jerusalem at Passover. In Matthew 27, verse 37, it says, "And set up over his head his accusation written, 'This is Jesus the King of the Jews.'" So this would be the Latin inscription. Matthew, a former tax gatherer for Rome, was used to using Latin, which was the language of the Roman army and the Roman administration of Judea. The Greek inscription gave the crime only. The Latin inscription, according to Roman usage, gave the name of the criminal and his crime. The Hebrew inscription gave his name, his crime, and also that he came from Nazareth. Mark chapter 15 verse 26 says, "The superscription of his accusation was written over, 'The King of the Jews.'" The shortest gospel has no additional words. So we see that there is an explanation for the slight differences between the recorded words, and there is certainly no cause to claim any discrepancy. When details in part of the Bible appear difficult to reconcile with details in another part, careful readers accept the challenge of trying to find reasons for the difference. Sooner or later a satisfactory answer will emerge, confirming the truth and reliability of God's book. Those 3 languages also proclaim that what was accomplished by Christ's death on the cross was a message of importance and inclusion for people of all languages. Pilate unwittingly wrote the truth. The Bible teaches that Jesus Christ will come again and rule as King of the Jews and of the whole world.